All right, 5 minutes is back here on CIH Media. Glad you guys are sticking around with us. Had the week off last week, but we're back and we're ready to go. I'm very excited to introduce our guest with us here today, coming all the way from Abilene, Texas. And no, he's not the manager of the Houston Astros, but I get the feeling if he wanted to be, he probably could do it. It's Dusty Baker from KTAB and KRBC out in Texas. Dusty, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Currently looking at that Astros lineup thinking, man, what can I do with this? But, I don't have that manager job right now. Still working my way to get there, Eric. But, enjoying the process right now of currently sitting at home and, what's going to eventually probably be our second round of quarantine.
Oh yeah, so much fun. Can't wait for all that stuff. But yeah, no, you'll have that big league job in no time. I have no doubt. All right. I know you're a big baseball guy, obviously, right? You were named after the man himself, after all. That's a true statement. I don't think I'm making that up. But what are we going to be talking about here today?
Yeah, huge baseball fan. Grew up playing the game. Yes, I was named after him. Actually, in the corner here, I have a couple pictures with the man himself. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about the free agency, what we're going to be seeing this offseason in Major League Baseball. We may even talk a little bit about some of those players that got those awards as well from just a week ago from Major League Baseball. Great 2020 season, and now we're turning our attention to 2021.
Yeah, a lot already going on in this offseason. I don't know how we're going to fit this into 5 minutes. We're going to do our best. If we don't, who cares? It's my show. I can do whatever I want. Let's put 5 minutes on the clock. Here we go. MLB offseason. We'll start with the biggest story. We were talking about it just before we started recording. It's got to be the New York Mets and Steve Cohen taking over the operations over there and owning the club and already making sweeping changes here in this offseason.
Absolutely. And Sandy Alderson is going to be taking over baseball operations there. He gets rid of Brody Van Wagenen, who had just entered New York as well. And so the Mets now kind of looking like a scary threat out there on the NL East side of things. And specifically, when you look at free agency, that's not the only place that the Mets, I think, are going to be dangerous this offseason. They may be even more dangerous in the trade talks. They've already been rumored to be in the running for Francisco Lindor. It makes a lot of sense as well. They have Ahmed Rosario at shortstop. Don't forget about Jimenez as well. That is also the backup there. They've got a lot of pieces that they can work with this offseason. But with Cohen coming out saying specifically that he expects to win a World Series in the next 5 seasons, I mean, that's a high stake to have, especially when you are in New York media. You share the media with the Yankees as well, a team that is known to be a high-spending team. I think the Mets are going to be in the running for not only Lindor, but also possibly Chris Bryant. And then when it comes to free agency as well, I mean, anybody out there is up for grabs. You can work around, obviously, first base, considering you have already Pete Alonso out there. But I think everybody else might be able to be shopped around. The Mets are going to be an interesting team to watch. And you got to keep the eyes on Trevor Bauer, what his move will be, maybe possibly going out to New York. I'm not sure if that's exactly the best fit for him, but that rotation is completely loaded. You have DJ LeMahieu, who could maybe turn from the AL East to the NL East and just changing from the pinstripes into the New York Mets attire. And so I'm curious to see what Cohen does, but that is a massive story out of New York. And I think that anybody around the other 29 teams in baseball that's a fan of those other 29 teams, they've got to be on high alert because, the old Mets that we like to, make jokes about, I don't know if that's really going to stick around much longer.
Boy, the NL East is just quite the polar opposite of the NFC East, isn't it? Everything out there on the upward trajectory. You look at the reigning National League MVP, Freddie Freeman, in the East. The reigning Manager of the Year out in the National League is Don Mattingly. So you know that division is probably going to be the toughest in baseball here in the next season or two, if it isn't already. So it'll be interesting to see if any of those big name players move into the division. One name that may move out of the division, but who knows where he could end up, JT Realmuto, who is always, that prize free agent. Do you see him leaving the division, or do you think he's going to stick around, but maybe with another team?
Yeah, JT Realmuto is definitely a big name that's coming out of the free agent market here. And I think that the Philadelphia Phillies, as much as they would like to bring him back, I think that they're going to be in the biggest bidding war for, we just mentioned them, the New York Mets, because the Mets have a problem at catcher. Of course, they had Ramos there last year, and just ultimately that's a weak spot for them. And My firm belief and a lot of other people's firm belief within the industry is that you want your strengths to be up the middle. So we're talking the catching position through the pitcher to the shortstop, second baseman, and center field. That's where you want your strengths to be. And so the Mets could really improve there at the catching position. And if Cohen's going to make a big move, I think that's going to be the actual first one that he makes. So no, I don't actually see Realmuto leave. The one way I do see him leave is if he goes to the NL Central, and that would be to be going to the St. Louis Cardinals if they decide that this is the time to move on from Yadier Molina. I, however, don't see that happening. It's really hard to envision that. That might just be because of the classic understanding that you see one player in a jersey their entire career. Hard to envision them leaving. That's how I see Adam Wainwright too, and he's been rumored to go to the Braves, but ultimately, I actually think Realmuto stays completely within the division, maybe not his entire career, but at this point in time, what would be his entire career, obviously going from Miami to Philadelphia. And then I could see it either staying in Philly or more likely going to New York. But that is definitely a key name. And you mentioned that division. I think Marcell Ozuna is another name to throw out there. He just changed agencies. If the Braves want to make it back to where they were this past year, and that is a team that was just one run away from the World Series. That was a very talented team. They did not have Mike Soroka. I think they realized that this is a win-now scenario with Freddie Freeman still in his prime, Ronald Acuna in his prime. Do they bring Marcell Ozuna back? That's going to be a huge question, but that should be the priority number one, I think, for the Braves this offseason, so that they don't let a team like the Mets try and kind of take shape of that division that is, quite frankly, the opposite of what you see from the Cowboys, Giants, Washington football team now, if you will, and then the Eagles as well.
Oh, you drove the stake right in there talking about those Braves. Those are my guys. I've mentioned it several times, but they came up short. We got to talk about the last point I wanted to bring up here, as we're over 5 minutes, but I don't care. We're going to overtime. I like talking baseball. Let's go out west to the team that beat the Braves in the Los Angeles Dodgers. There's no doubt about it. This is the best team in the league, and I'm not really sure it's all that close. You talk about teams reloading. I don't like to use the term reload when we're talking about the Dodgers, because reload implies you ran out of something. They haven't run out of anything. It's just adding to the arsenal at this point. And the big name that's being talked around right now, Nolan Arenado, could he be headed back to Southern California where he grew up?
Yeah, that is the big name being thrown around. And I like the fact that you mentioned the idea of, retooling, refueling. The depth in LA is absolutely absurd. And that goes beyond what you see on the 40-man roster. That goes throughout the entire minor league farm system that they have. I think that the move for Nolan Arenado, it makes sense, but I don't think it happens. And the reason why is because the Dodgers' priority should not be focused on bringing in another superstar, but retaining the current ones that they have in that organization. Corey Seager, he will be a free agent after the 2021 season. That should be priority number one. On top of that, trying to lock in Bellinger and possibly Walker Buehler as well. Maybe even Julio Urias, the man that got that final out of the World Series. That should also be a major priority. And on top of that, Justin Turner is a free agent right now. Kike Hernandez, Jock Peterson, they're all free agents. I don't expect Jock Peterson to come back, but Kike Hernandez is a possibility. You wonder what LA is thinking right now with Justin Turner being as old as he is at 36. Do they bring him back on possibly a 2-year contract, try and have him as a DH there, and maybe have either Edwin Rios or Matt Beatty play third base? That's the real question. But I don't think Arenado should be the primary focus. If you saw anything from the playoffs, it's that bullpen, especially in the ninth inning, that needs some addressing right there. Maybe Liam Hendricks is the guy they actually target instead of Nolan Arenado. But there's a possibility. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, because Andrew Friedman finds ways to pull these trades off, and he's got plenty to work with Gavin Lux as well as the rest of the depth that I mentioned. But at the end of the day, I think that the route the Dodgers should take is try to lock in Seager, first of all, the man who got the NLCS MVP and the World Series MVP as well.
One of the guys who mentioned there, Jock Peterson, as we head way into overtime here today on 5 minutes. Jock Peterson was an Angel for, a few minutes.
A couple hours.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Angels real quick. We got a big fan base here in Southern California. I know you're from Southern California too. Your thoughts real quickly on Perry Manassian becoming the new general manager of the Los Angeles Angels.
Well, it's definitely a great hire, and I think Billy Epler is going to be known as the man that held Mike Trout back in his career from actually having a chance to make a deep playoff run. It's going to take some work with this organization, and luckily they have Albert Pujols eventually in the near future coming off the books, and that's going to be huge for them when that happens, so they have a little more clarity. Shohei Ohtani being signed as a two-way starter, it looks like he's primarily going to be just a DH now after his arm injuries, and it looks like that's just another problem for their starting rotation. If he wants to make an early impact in this organization, the move he probably needs to make is find a way to clear the budget and bring in a guy like Trevor Bauer. And simply because they do need another face, Mike Trout's a huge one that they have there, but Trout kind of likes to keep a low profile, and as we all know, Trevor Bauer from Southern California, actually from my area as well. He went to the rival high school of my area. He went to Hart High School. I went to Valencia. But Trevor Bauer is very much in your face. He has a huge social media following, and if the Angels want to bring in more followers and more fans, ultimately, that may not be a bad move. On top of that, Bauer said he wants to pitch every fourth day. Well, right now, they only have 3 starters in that rotation. Maybe sign Bauer, throw the money at him as best you can. With a 1-year deal is what he's been asking for. Kind of strange, but we'll see kind of the avenue that he takes negotiating, and then try to bring in a project pitcher as well. Maybe a guy like John Lester that's just trying to finish out his career as well that can eat innings. Mike Minor's another one. But the Angels really need to focus on that starting rotation, I think, if they want to have any shot whatsoever. That division, the Astros may be losing George Springer. Obviously, the Rangers are at their low point right now. The Mariners are ascending, and they don't want to compete with the Mariners at their full ascension, because I think the Mariners in 3 to 4 years, that's going to be a scary team that people don't realize right now, with Jared Kelenic that came from the Mets. Kind of leading the way for Seattle.
I tell you, all the Angel fans out here probably agree with you. Get me some starting pitching, or any pitching for that matter at this point. Well, we were just shy of 10 minutes. This is an all-time record here on 5 minutes, and I don't think I'd have it any other way. This has been so great. Dusty Baker, thanks so much for joining us, and happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving to you as well, and can't wait for the next 10 minutes as well.
I love it. We'll talk to you soon.